Good morning, everybody. We are gonna go ahead and get started, but I wanted to ask you a quick favor. If you can hear me okay, can you please give me a notice in the chat box? We're having a little bit of technology difficulties, as I'm sure you have all experienced. Okay, thank you, Mary. I can't see you for some reason, which is unfortunate because I don't get to see your beautiful faces, but I will keep an eye on the chat and make sure that you guys your feedback is being heard. And if you have any tips or suggestions, that's heard in the chat. Thank you, everybody, for verifying that you can hear me. We're going to go ahead and get started for sake of time. And so this is the active classrooms training, the brain energizers and physical activity for social emotional health. This is typically presented by Andrea Bernal, who is our school health specialist. Exciting news, she's actually out on maternity leave. Her beautiful baby girl was born on the 4th of July. So she will not be with us for the beginning of the school year. So I will do my best to fill in for her today, talking about this training. I am the program coordinator for the AZ Health Zone program in Cochise County. So I just wanted to start off by saying thank you for being here today. I know that it's summertime. Most, if not all, schools in Cochise County have not started, whether online programming or in-person programming. I know that this time is very stressful and very full of uncertainty, and it just didn't really feel that good, especially conversations around school and going back to school and supporting children. And there's so many different layers to that. And one of the layers is social emotional health, and just thinking about what are both teachers and staff going to be faced with in terms of challenges, social emotional health challenges, and what are children going to be experiencing. So if you don't mind, we have a really good group here of people who are using the chat, so I appreciate that. So share with me a challenge that you perceive or a social emotional difficulty that you are kind of anticipating with either right now or going back to school. And if you want to unmute yourself to speak up, you are more than welcome to do so too. How to bond with students via distant learning. Yeah, how to keep them engaged. Isolation. Yeah, so I'm seeing different layers of social emotional challenges here. So social emotional challenges for children who are going back to the classroom and what that looks like, being stuck in the class all day, limited recess, no special things like field trips or extra classes. Kids are confused. Kids are stuck inside. Kids are, stuck with, I'm kind of reading through here. Yeah, the unknown is really difficult. And so Sabrina shared her son who has autism, getting him prepped for the unknown is really difficult. And how do you even do that? How do you prep for the unknown? Charlotte shared dealing with students' emotions as they're affected, and families affected directly by COVID, maybe a loss or a death, or maybe I think like somebody said earlier in the chat, just confusing information and hearing on the news or seeing on Facebook or hearing their families talk about different components of COVID-19, and it's scary and what's right and what's wrong. And thank you all for sharing. So this training is not meant to fix all the problems. I don't think that there's anything right now that is going to fix all the challenges that are being faced with the next school year. But what we were hearing from teachers and from staff is that going back to school, the social emotional piece is going to be the most important. We're hearing about what that's going to look like in terms of classroom behavior. How are teachers going to anticipate all of these challenges? How are students even going to learn if they are, not self-regulated and not in a safe space where they feel like they can learn. What does a safe space even mean right now with coronavirus? So what our workshop today intends to do is just give you a couple of practical skills to support social emotional health. Again, it's by no means the answer, and it will not take the replace of counseling services or, well-funded classrooms that are safe and have all the things that they need to go back to school or anything like that. But we definitely are going to stress the importance of these small, tangible things that you can weave into your day as an educator, but whether you're in the classroom or outside of the classroom, if you're doing online distance learning. So thank you for being here today. Thank you for doing the hard work of, educating kids, but also valuing their social emotional health and recognizing the bigger picture and taking just a little bit of time today to learn more about that. So for sake of time, and because we are online today, we're going to skip through this first introduction activity. And I just real quick, briefly chat about what is this going to look like. So we're going to spend the next 40 minutes or so talking about why it's important to integrate brain energizers and physical activity into your lesson plans, into your days, into your teaching. And this training was developed for regular classroom life. Like this was, consider it the pre-coronavirus training. But a lot of it is still relevant and still important. So as we go through this, know that some of the material is going to be more applicable just to general time, general kids, general classrooms before everything happened. And then we're going to spend some time talking about the specifics of COVID-19 and how this is going to look to integrate these brain energizers. And so then that'll be part 2, how to effectively deliver the brain energizers, and then really transforming our classrooms, whether they're online or in person, social distancing, or, a year from now, hopefully everything's back to normal, creating that active classroom and active schools. So hopefully by the end of this training, you all feel confident and knowledgeable enough to incorporate more exercise and brain energizers into your classroom. Okay, so we are going to start with an activity, and this is going to be a really nice example of how to do physical activity, these little brain breaks, whether you're online or in person. So in short, this is it's short, it's physical. We're going to shake our bodies one limb at a time, especially because we're going to be sitting for the next 45 minutes or so. And this is how we would want to model this in the classroom as well. So we're going to have the rules, expressing the rules clearly to our children. Reading the rules again, we're going to demonstrate, asking for verbal confirmation or a thumbs up to make sure we understand the rules. So I'm going to turn on my camera. You're welcome to if you want. I can't even see you. So hopefully some of you will join us. And if not, even off camera, I'm going to ask that everybody stands up in their own space. There we are. I can see you. Okay, so we have a couple standing. And so as a group, we're going to do this activity together. So we're going to do 8 shakes of our right arm, 8 shakes of our left, 8 shakes of one leg, 8 shakes of the other. And then we're going to do that 4 shakes and for 2 shakes. And then at the end, we're going to cheer and everyone can do their signature move. So if you're participating, if you understand the rules, if you know what we're doing, can you give me a thumbs up or a verbal confirmation in the chat? You guys with me? Okay, I see some thumbs. Awesome. So this is kind of weird because we're all in our own houses. So you might be echoing, or your children or your families might be like, what the heck are you guys doing? But we are going to count together. So let's start with our right arm, just 8 shakes. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Left arm, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Right leg, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Left leg, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, now we're gonna do it 4 times. Right arm, 1, 2, 3, 4. Left arm, 1, 2, 3, 4. Right leg, 1, 2, 3, 4. Left leg, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, 2 times. So right arm, 1, 2. Left arm, 1, 2. Right arm, 1, 2. Left arm, 1, 2. All right, yay, everybody. Now I want to see your signature shake move. Ready, go. I'm gonna shake my whole body. Okay, let's come back together. Thank you guys for participating. I can see a couple of your cameras, so I appreciate it. So let's think about this activity. Let's break it apart. Was I touching anybody? Nope. Wasn't touching anybody, could stand in my own space, was safe. I'm breathing a little bit heavy, I guess, but could be done in a way that isn't causing a lot of high heart rates and a lot of breathing. So if we're thinking about kids who have to wear masks, it's a really nice, quick little move. A couple of things you'll notice as we continue to talk about these physical activity movements and these little brain breaks is that they incorporate other levels of learning. So besides just moving our bodies, can you tie an academic lesson to that, what we just did? Some kind of learning domain. So what I'm thinking here is counting. So if we think of these younger ages, yep, counting, skip counting, left from right, following sequence and steps. Absolutely. It could get for these kids that are getting older, we could do different language, math division, right? So why did we go 8, 4, 2? Even numbers, you could really do a lot of different variations of this kind of thing. So whatever strategy you're working on right now with children or whatever the lesson plan is for that day, we want to kind of get creative and think how can we tie the physical activity that we're going to do to learning? Sometimes, not always. Sometimes we just got to move and wiggle, right? Okay, top to bottom, yes, great, good suggestion. Okay. So it's really important to practice and model these healthy behaviors. And I left the word practice in here because it can be, kids are smart, and they know if you're fumbling through an activity. So whatever the lesson is, whatever the brain breaks are going to do, if it's going to take a little bit more steps than just, everybody stand up and wiggle your bodies, we want to make sure that you practice that ahead of time, either with your family or just alone by yourself or with other teachers. Okay. So thank you for participating in that. So let's talk about why we even need physical activity in the classrooms, as well as, other forms of physical activity in kids' daily lives. So physical activity is not the same as PE. Physical activity is really just, and we think about these brain breaks and brain energizers. Physical activity is really just moving, right? So anytime we're moving our body. For brain breaks, it's brief, it's structured classroom activities. It can be led by you, it can be led by a student, and it can be led by a video. And we're going to talk more about the video aspect later, because there are so many resources out right now that can really help guide some of these things if you guys have a lot on your plate. So asking you to come up with additional physical activity plans and being creative and making them up on your own is not fair and not necessary, because there are so many resources available to you. There's great benefits to academics, and physical activity should never be used or withheld as punishment. We want to really stress that physical activity is something that every child should be doing, and especially in terms of discipline arenas, physical activity can actually help support child healthy behavior. So we want to make sure it's never used or withheld. And then obviously the way it's different from PE is PE's, program taught by qualified teachers, follows state standards. It's very specific. It's typically some kind of skill building or structured learning, which is going to be really different than our physical activity. So in regular times, this workshop is promoted to talk about the physical activity guidelines and these children who are not getting enough physical activity. So our kids in general are moving less. School-age children need 60 minutes or 1 hour of physical activity every single day. Even though physical activity in the classroom is an activity, that's not always strongly enforced. We want to think about how can we as teachers, or you as teachers, help in improving these circumstances. So I don't know, and I'm going to say this, there's no science behind this fact. I'm willing to guess from my own personal experience, the amount of sedentary screen time has likely increased since school has been canceled. And I would hazard a guess, again, and this is just anecdotal, to say that for some families and for some children, that 60 minutes of aerobic physical activity is happening less. That's not the same for all families. I think that there's also the chance that children have had more time to play outside, ride their bikes, do things like that, now that they've not been in school. However, we want to make sure that as a school, the reason we're providing physical activity is because we might want to hit those children that are not able to get outside and play. Maybe it's not safe, maybe they don't have the opportunity, maybe they don't have the physical capabilities to do so. So we want to really just think about those kinds of things. Yes, we have a couple of things here. If behavior isn't appropriate, it may be because they need the brain break. Absolutely, we're going to get into that. I think Desiree said she knows she's moving less. Yeah, it's hard, especially if we're thinking about the online component of teaching right now. There's a lot of sitting in front of the computer. Even for me, I'm on Zoom calls all day long. If I'm not teaching them, I'm receiving them. So yeah, we're doing a lot of sitting. Okay. Let me go through here. So according to the CDC in Arizona, 76.6% of adolescents are overweight or obese, and 78% of adolescents are receiving less than the recommended 60 minutes of physical activity a day. And so again, you as teachers have a really small role in adding physical activity into your teaching, which does both things. One, it gets your body moving, but two, it kind of normalizes that physical activity. And when we see other people doing things, when we are regularly incorporating physical activity into our daily lives, it makes it easier to do so naturally. It becomes a behavior instead of just a habit. So in general, what do you think that schools are doing to take action against childhood obesity and inactivity? Maybe things that you're doing now or that you did March through May, but even before that, just in general. Does anyone know what schools are doing here? Schools have PE 3 times a week. Yeah, thank you, Sabrina. So it's likely that PE is written into your local wellness policy. So has anyone heard of a local wellness policy? Again, I can't really see your hands, so I would just go with, hopefully someone's raising your hands, if people have not. Okay, so we're getting a couple of no's, a couple of yeses. So your local wellness policy, which is actually being changed to be called the school wellness policy, is a written document of official policies that guides the local education agency or district's efforts. Okay, I'm guessing a lot of no's. That really is supporting the school environment to focus on health, well-being, and the ability to learn. And it's okay if you've never heard of local wellness policies. They might not be well known, but they do exist in every district, including yours. And some schools take that a step further and create their own local wellness policies specific to their school's goals and health. But more commonly across the board, it's one local wellness policy per district. So an example of what would be in your district local wellness policy that is related to what we're talking about today is here. So students will be given opportunities for physical activity during the school day through daily recess periods, PE, walking programs, and the integration of physical activity into the academic curriculum. So that bolded part is why we're here today. So physical activity in the classroom is important, and it might be new to some of us to think about incorporating, but it's actually already in your local wellness polity, and it's something that we already all should be doing. And so how can we do it? And I want to keep stressing this point of like integration of physical activity into the academic curriculum. So I am not a teacher. I am friends with a lot of teachers, and I also have worked in schools for a long time, whether preschools or elementary schools. And I know the thought of having to integrate another thing into your world is insane. And it immediately puts up walls of resistance, and immediately it's like, well, another thing, you're really expecting us to do these things. And so that's what we're here to do today to help you with. It's tangible, it's tiny, it takes a little bit of extra thought, but you have resources available to you, including us. And this integration of physical activity into the academic curriculum doesn't have to be big or hard or heavy. So what are brain energizers? What are these tiny little tools that you can use in your classroom? So brain energizers they're short. They can be 5 to 10 minutes typically, but they don't have to be. They can be even as short as 2 minutes or 3 minutes. It's really just whatever you can squeeze in and whatever is going to work in that moment. These brain energizers benefit children's health. They're good for classroom management. And before coronavirus, we wanted to think about incorporating brain energizers 2 or 3 times per day. And we also want to highlight that brain energizers are not highly structured or skill specific. So we're not spending a lot of time. Let's go back to the shaking activity. We're shaking our arms. We're not spending a lot of time thinking, well, shake your arm down up to the right a little bit more, or no, that's not how we're shaking our body, or you mixed up your right foot or your left foot. We're really not looking at the skill specific things, because that can actually be more taxing on the brain and can have the opposite effect. So these brain scans of 2 students who took the same test can tell us a lot. So as we can see, the differences in the brain activity between the person who sat for 20 minutes, which is on the left, and the one who walked for 20 minutes. So this study was done by Charles Hillman at the University of Urbana-Champaign, which tells us that even moderate aerobic exercise can contribute to cognitive improvement in adolescence. Now, we likely don't have the luxury of going for a 20-minute walk in the middle of the school day, but we can still activate our brains and activate student brains by doing some of these brain energizers and incorporating more physical activity. So in a nutshell, what science now tells us is that moderate exercises can contribute to significant benefits in the classroom by actually firing up different areas of the brain. And I do want to just note real quick, Cassandra Jones said that she incorporated yoga for classrooms in her class in January, and she thought maybe it would be overwhelming to add something else, but the kiddos enjoyed them, and so did she. Yes, thank you, Cassandra, for sharing that. So benefits of physical activity in the classroom, which it sounds like Cassandra has probably seen here. For students, it shows that children show improved cognitive skills and attitude, better academic behavior, and higher academic achievement. And these are all positives that we want for our students to succeed, especially now, in current times. But for teachers, it also shows, increased academic standardized test scores, improved classroom behavior, increased confidence and effort in the classroom. And so from your perspective, there's a bunch of benefits too, and who wouldn't want these in their classroom? But the other thing I want to highlight, which I had a note here to talk about, and Cassandra just really hit on too, is that brain energizers can help you, the teacher, reset as well. because it's the same. It has the same effects for us to get up and move and to regulate. And so, I do this in some of my classes that I teach. They tend to be a little bit longer. And if I feel like I'm stumbling, or maybe I've lost my place on my PowerPoint or something like that, I will pause and do a brain break, because it actually helps me slow down. It helps my brain activate in a different way, and can be a really nice tool to kind of bring the group back together. So what are the barriers to brain energizers? What are the barriers to doing these brain breaks? For students, some kids might think it's not cool. And even for us on the camera, some people are not comfortable showing their camera on, or putting their camera on so that people can see them shaking their right arm and their left arm. So there's an embarrassment factor. They might think it's boring. These brain energizers might not be age appropriate, which we'll talk about when we get to the resources side. But, if we're doing like even the shaking activity and counting, and we're practicing counting, is a 16-year-old going to necessarily care about counting? Maybe not so much. So, we want to just keep those things in mind, making it age appropriate. And then no teacher participation. It's really, if I was just sitting here telling you guys, okay, shake your right arm, shake your left arm, why would you do it? It really is helpful when we're all in there together. Yes, not feeling cool. Absolutely. Not cool, not cool. So there's definitely those barriers. And so when we get to the resources side, I will show you guys a little bit more of that. But I want to real quick touch on the COVID-19 components, the benefits of brain breaks, and also the barriers to these brain breaks. So studies show that exercise boosts activation in children's prefrontal cortex. So tell me about the prefrontal cortex. Does anybody know why this is important to activate the front of our brains? Regulation. Yeah, thank you, Desiree. I hope I'm saying that right, Desiree. Yep, executive functioning, yes. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and that's it in a nutshell. So if we're living, think about a high pressure situation, or if you think about being on a Zoom call or a training, if we did this training for 3 hours and you're getting antsy and you're getting hot and you're thirsty and you're thinking about all these things, you're not paying attention, you're really starting to move back towards the back of your brain, which is survival, which is emotional, which is boredom, which is frustration, which is anger, which is really those, some of those negative behaviors that we might start seeing. And we're antsy, but by taking a brain break, what we can do even as adults is take a break and do some physical activity that's going to move us from activating the emotional and survival part of our brain up into the executive functioning part of our brain. So physical activity is actually defined as an outflow of energy. So if we're feeling antsy, even talking about that makes me feel a little bit antsy. So I want to stand up right now. We're helping to channel some of that energy. And I think going back to what somebody said in the chat, a lot of times some of those negative behaviors or behaviors that we are disruptive can oftentimes be attributed, not always, but oftentimes be attributed back to where is that outflow of energy going? And so can we provide a space where that's positive and benefits everybody? So COVID-19 specifically, if we're thinking about brain breaks, they can really promote self-regulation. So there are going to be a lot of children who have not had structured support and self-regulation at home, or a different kind of structured self-regulation at home. Like if they're having a difficult day, they can go into their room by themselves and do something. And those kind of options are not going to be available if, one, they're expected to either sit in front of the computer for a while and to do a lesson, or two, are back into the classroom. So these brain breaks can really help promote that self-regulation and get these kids back into positive skill building there. It also helps get back into routine. So I think, and also in the comments, somebody had said that the activity that we did was talking about sequencing and following instructions. And so that's another piece of brain breaks that can be really important. You know, if kids are having a hard time with these multi-step activities where they have to use their brain and think and process and do these different things in relation to what they're learning, it's sometimes nice to pause and follow some basic steps and practice doing that kind of thing. It can also relieve some pressure to the day, which is primarily just because it's fun. It's fun to get up and do something, and it's fun to do something that you can't really be wrong at. You're just kind of moving your body. And so if there's this, I'm having difficulty in front of the computer, I'm having difficulty understanding this remotely, or, you know, difficulty with not being able to hug my friends or whatever it is, we can provide just small opportunities to let go of some of that and have some fun. So then the barriers about this, about brain energizers are, one, online instruction. So how, like right now, for example, you know, I can't see you. I don't know that you're doing this. I could talk all day long about doing practice activities, but if you're not doing it, you're not doing it. And there's that isolation piece that someone brought up. You know, there's that positive peer pressure in the classroom of like, well, everybody's doing it, so I'll get up and shake my arms too. That can be difficult to have happen here. Social distancing is going to make this a little bit more challenging to organize and to plan and implement, because if you're in the classroom, how can you get your bodies moving in a way, say every day, that's not going to be boring, but still going to keep everybody safe. And along with that, there's the mask piece. You know, do we really, if kids are expected to wear masks, like how can we keep them safe and not hyperventilating or anything like that there? And then difficulties following instruction, kind of knowing that, you know, that I'm going to keep going back to the shaking activity. That shaking activity could escalate really quickly, and kids are flinging their arms all around. And, you know, if they're not used to concentrating on a task or following instruction because of being off for so long, that's going to present its own challenges. So we'll talk about that here more in a little bit. So how do we do this to support the benefits, and how are we going to do this to overcome some of these barriers? So we've already completed one brain energizer at the beginning, and so we're going to practice for a couple more here. And I am going to need a volunteer, although this might be tricky because I can't see you. So we'll see how this goes. You guys might have to help us regulate here. And this is kind of what this looks like, doing these brain breaks, these brain energizers, right? Online is hard. So I need a volunteer to be willing to put their camera on and do 2 quick activities for me, with me. And if not, that is okay too. I will just jump around a little bit. Well, JC, okay. So let me, or JC or Jackie?
It's JC.
Okay, JC, thank you. Okay, and I can see you, so this is good. Okay, so we are gonna look at this little short activity called, really just a variation of rock, paper, scissors. And so rock, paper, scissors is a really good way to, or a really good example of taking a known thing that a lot of people know how to play, because it cuts down on instruction time. It doesn't require supplies. So taking these kinds of activities and incorporating some physical activity and incorporating some learning into it. So we're going to start with bear, salmon, mosquito. So bear beats the salmon. So we have bear, salmon, mosquito. And so bear beats salmon, salmon beats mosquito, mosquito beats bear. So how we're going to do this, and we're going to talk about the variation here. This is how it's set up if we're in a classroom. If we're online or in 6-foot distancing, this is still possible. So we're not going to do back to back, but what we are going to do is stand up. If you can. And we might have to have some audience participation here to tell us, because my screen's tiny, so you guys might have to see who wins here. Yes, and the biggest one doesn't win. Absolutely. That's really nice take on this. So what we're going to do is we're going to hop up and down when we say bear, salmon, mosquito, go. So what that will look like is bear, salmon, mosquito, go. And so I chose bear. And if I lost, if she was a mosquito and beat me, then I would do 2 squats. That's how we're going to do it. And that's it. And then we're just going to do it again. So are you ready?
Tell me what bear was again.
So we have bear, like rawr, and it can be however you want to, whatever your take on a bear is. Salmon, I just have a little fish, and then mosquito is just a mosquito. I probably have a couple in here that are playing it unknowingly. Okay, so are you ready?
I am.
Okay, so we'll start with my hopping. So we'll go bear, salmon, mosquito, go. Okay, so I was a salmon, you beat me. Okay, so I do 2 squats. 1, 2. Okay, we'll do it one more time. Ready? Bear, yes. Salmon, mosquito, go. I can't see. I'm a mosquito. We're both mosquitoes. Yay, okay, so we'll both do 2 squats. So 1, 2. Okay, thank you for participating. Thank you so much. Okay, so quick, that was what, maybe 2 minutes. We could have done that activity sitting across from each other. We could have done that activity online like this, or we could do it even out in a field or something like that, keeping that social distance. So just another example. And another way that you can modify, so another example of activity of rock, paper, scissors is using hands to talk about math skills, to build these math skills. So same concept of like jumping up and down. So you'd go rock, paper, scissors, go. And the 2 components are going to use their hand to do like, sorry, I threw my camera off. To do like 1, 2, 3. So it'd be rock, paper, scissors, go. And then the first person who can count up the different things. So if I did a 2, JC did a 1, the first person to say 3 is the winner, and then would stand up and do the squats. So different ways to kind of incorporate some of these things. And again, I want to say that you don't have to, if you want to be creative because you're teachers and this is what you guys do and you're very good at it, you can create these variations, but a lot of this already exists for you. You don't have to come up with these different things. Okay. So classroom connections. Thinking about how these can be tied into academic concepts. So we'll think about this again if you guys want to share in the chat. What academic concepts could bear, salmon, mosquito be incorporated into? And then how could we make the math, rock, paper, scissors more challenging for those older grade levels? Yeah, research each animal and insect. Yeah. Perfect. So we're adding our like science and nature components here. We can statistics. Yeah, that sounds very hard. Ecosystems, geography. Yeah, where are they found? Yep, absolutely. There's so many different ideas here and so many different ways that you can tie these things together. Yep, multiplication for the math. And all we're doing is getting our brains moving in tiny different ways. Size comparison. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. I was thinking a lot of those same things. So we can think about, like science class, even the food chain, predator versus prey. Yeah, swap out animal names. Yep, absolutely. Using 2 hands, subtraction, multiplication. A lot of these times, these brain energizers are used like in between lessons or as like a transition between lessons, but absolutely you can use them inside of lessons as well. So we talk about the acting piece, what it looks like, these tiny little skills that we have to incorporate in, but how do we actually do it? So let's talk about how to transform your classrooms into ones that support physical activity. We're going to cover some resource pages and cover how to incorporate these into your day-to-day routines. So the first thing is to familiarize yourself with different brain energizers available. So after this workshop, for all of you that have registered online, I have your emails. I will be sending out a certificate, but I will also be sending out a list of resources that you can use however you need, like I said, so you don't have to reinvent the wheel. So take home tip number one, have understanding of these brain energizers and know a couple that you really always have on your ready. There's one that we're going to do here in a second that I always have with me. I do it, and probably if you've been in one of my trainings, you're sick of it. But it's just something that's a quick go-to that I know off the top of my head that we can do really quickly. So having them easily accessible. Different delivery methods for activities. So maybe have printable packets that kids can have. So if you know you're going to incorporate some brain energizers into your online programming, consider sending that home with whatever they're getting home, so that kids can see the instructions in front of them, because there are those different learning styles. But then also the digital, like sending the videos or doing the videos together. So you guys already shared a couple of really good resources in the chat, the yoga, and somebody actually talked about Go Noodle. So some of you may already be familiar with Go Noodle, and it's a really popular brain energizers that is used in a lot of different classrooms, and it's highly recommended for a couple of reasons. First, it's broken down into helpful categories. You can see here, like curricular, mindfulness, sensory motor, etc. And they don't always have to be related to academic concepts, so they're easy, and sometimes you can just find some fun activities that aren't tied to something academic. You can also go into the search bar and filter the activities by time and energy level. So like the low energy activities would be similar to stretching and breathing. Maybe there's some yoga videos in there, and they're really good for calming a class down. And then if you have the space and can energize your students, or you need to really boost that energy and get their brains working harder there, there's the medium and high energy level activities. And then last, you can see the black heart in the upper right-hand corner of the screenshot there. And that feature allows you to go back to your favorite videos. So once you log in, you can easily find things that you've already tried or that your students have reported you like. So Go Noodle is very popular. And if you would like support with Go Noodle, when we get to the contact information at the end, please reach out and we are happy to help you get connected there. A couple other activities. So Let's Move, it's an online PDF, grades K through 8. The reason that we suggest this one and we really love it is because you can kind of see in the bottom towards the middle there, there's adaptations for students. And that is really cool to look at these different things that you're doing and make sure that we're matching different physical activity capabilities or health levels. Okay, so there's that one. And then we have, so for older kids, for these high school students that are maybe more difficult to reach or difficult to engage, there's resources for that too. So this is just one example of the resources that I will share with you, and it's called Change to Chill. So it's really even using that teenager language here. And this is just a quick screenshot, but there's chill breaks from 2 minutes to 10 minutes. And there's all these different activities that you can do and different movement that's really more designed for self-regulation than like rigorous physical activity, but can still be really important. So like I said, I'll send you guys all of those plus more. So this is a pre-COVID resource example. And I want to look at what this would look like. And I think some of you have probably already done something like this, like you have and it's very easy. So you have the popsicle sticks, you write an activity on it. At various times of the day, you might pull one out and say, this is what we're doing, all these different kinds. So just a quick variation of COVID-19 resources. You could have each child make 5 or so exercises that they can keep at their desk so that, we're not sharing these different things. Typically, in the past, it would be like, okay, you're our volunteer for the day. And you can go pick out an activity that we're going to do. So to limit some of that multi-touching, kids could have their own, and they could, if we ring the bell and said, okay, it's brain break time, they could randomly choose their own, or you could have a child volunteer take a turn at pulling one that the whole class participates in. So Just another tangible example. And then a few more sample brain breaks and energizers. So touch blue is the one that I keep in my back pocket at all times. And I want to talk about how I have been using this variation during coronavirus. So touch blue typically goes like this. Okay, everybody, you have 5 seconds to walk and touch something blue, or touch something warm, or touch something soft, or touch something sharp. It can be something on their desk, it could be an item of clothing. Sometimes, a lot of times I have to get up and move. And the last person to find an object then has to say the next thing. So if I was the last person, then I would say, okay, now everyone go touch something rough. So how this would look like in COVID-19 would be touch it maybe with the tip of your toe, or adding an additional rule that you can't touch something that somebody else is touching, so that you're kind of keeping those that distance there. And you can do variations of that too, even if we're going back to tying it to academics, like touch something that starts with an R, or touch something that maybe was made in a factory or something like that. And then dance party is also a really, really good sample brain energizer, because all you have to do is turn on music, especially for older kids. Sometimes if you can tie it to like a popular song that's school appropriate, of course, you can have everybody stop what you're doing and move your body. Another one is, and also the reason I put these up here too is because these are things that can be done remotely and in the classroom. So the next one is, what are you doing? And so what you would do here is you would invite a student to mime an action, whether in front of the classroom or on their webcam screen. And then the first person to guess the action that they're doing would then mime something. Then it's their turn. It's simple, it's fun. You could add some ground rules, like you have to do a motion that moves your whole body, or okay, now you have to mime a motion just with your feet, or something like that. You can kind of get people thinking and get creative in those different ways. And then tying it back to the social emotional health piece. So physical activity can be a really good way to to take the pressure off of talking about really difficult things, or to take the pressure off of a deep eye contact conversation, or like the teacher in front of the classroom teaching and asking kids to talk about something, it just can change when your body's moving. It can kind of change the way you're doing things. So think about this even for yourself. One really good therapeutic tip, and also a workplace tip, is if you have to have a hard conversation with somebody, do it while you're taking a walk, because your bodies are moving, your brain is pumping, you're in that executive function space, so you are better able to listen to what somebody's saying, to process it, and to really be mindful instead of just reacting to what is being talked about. So this is just one activity that relates to physical activity and social emotional health, and can help kids navigate some tough conversations. So what you would do, or the instructions are this. So we'll play it with you guys. We'll play right now. I'll turn my camera. Well, I don't need to. Well, yeah, I'll do it with you guys too. Okay. So I'm going to share a scenario with you. And when you connect a negative feeling to this scenario, I want you to punch your fist in the air like this. And we want to be careful. We're not touching our neighbors. We're not punching, anything hard or anything like that. We're just punching in the air and moving our arms. And when you feel a positive connection or a positive feeling about the scenario, I want you to jump up and down and clap. Okay. So let's talk about these scenarios, and then listing, different, what's a negative emotion, what's a positive emotion, however you want to talk about that. So the scenario, school is canceled again until December. For me, I don't know. I don't have a feeling specifically about that because it's complicated. So I'll go both. Now I'm double movement. Your computer isn't working and you can't log into the online classroom portal. It's really hot outside and you have to wear a mask. Your friends do a drive-by birthday parade party for you. Your parents are staying home with you and you guys get to go for walks together every day. Snacks may be cool. You get a fun package in the mail, and on and on and on. So you can take some of these, thank you, if you participate, you can sit down. So you can take some of these harder conversations that are going to need to really be had for kids, and going back to the very beginning of the training when we asked about, we talked about fears and stress and what are these kids experiencing. You know, using physical activity can be a really healthy way to get some of those things out. So our take-home tip number 2 is just to look through your lesson plan and think about the best times that you can implement these brain energizers, and like physically and like schedule these brain energizers. So 1, have some in your back pocket that you can use at any time if you're like, oh my gosh, we just need a break. But 2, be intentional about putting them in, because it can be really easy to just bypass them and not think about it as being important. So when can you use brain energizers in your classroom? What will this look like social distancing, and what about online? So we're getting tight on time here, but I want to hear from you guys, because less for me, but more for your peers, because you guys are the experts here. So what do you think? And feel free to chat if you want to, instead of trying to type this. Transitions from one activity to another. Thank you, Sabrina. And I want to just put out a reminder too about these brain energizers. It doesn't even have to be like planned like this. It can be really simple, like, okay, if you think the answer is B, stand up and sit back down, you know, quick little things. So we have, even if all students engage via online, the ones who want to can, when kids are sitting for 30 minutes plus during long lectures, yeah, absolutely. Great suggestions. Thank you guys for sharing. Here's a few more. Oh, go ahead. Somebody chatting?
I teach high school, and this spring, something that worked well for me was having a menu of options for activities for my students, and then they had to report somehow how they did it. And I didn't use physical activity, brain break type. Well, some of it's brain breaks, but I didn't have like the physical activity component that would be nice to incorporate, but it certainly would work well with that. And with high schoolers, they can easily do, like, take a selfie of themselves doing it, or, write a couple of sentences about what happened and how they feel about it or whatever.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. That's a really great example for those older children, practically almost adults, those high schoolers really, giving them the option and allowing them to exert their independence while still providing the structure of what needs to happen there. So I think that's a really, really good idea. Thank you for sharing. Other times to think about these brain energizers. So mornings, transition times between class periods, after lunch, anytime people are, you just feel the energy and it needs to be calmed down, before a test to increase focus, when you're waiting in line or walking to another area. So that could just be like, okay, we're walking from here to here. If you can, do tiptoes or try heel to toe. Or if you're waiting in line, let's bring our knees to our elbows 5 times, something like that. And this is a sample schedule of what this could look like. I don't necessarily know if this will be applicable now, so we're going to go ahead and skip that here. But the most important thing about this is writing. We want to write it down, stick it into whatever your plan is for that day, for both yourself and for you. So more tips for success: participating with the students, starting an online library for brain energizers, modifying activities so all kids can participate, consider advocating for school-wide breaks. So this is everybody at once, not just individual teachers. Including brain energizers as frequently as possible, knowing that they benefit mental, physical, and academic, being prepared, participating, and having fun, and then thinking about COVID-19 specific things. So it might be worth it to increase the amount of recommended brain breaks from 2 to 3 to whatever's going to work. Maybe you're doing it every hour on the hour. Planning and researching ahead for safe activities. Again, I'll provide resources, and others can, I'll provide resources, and you can research your own and find some things, or you can contact us. We're happy to help you or organize some of these things. Consider both in-person and online options. And so thinking about all the activities that we just did right now, I planned for them. But if I were planning another, I would think, okay, are we going to be delivering this in person somewhere, or are we going to be delivering it online? And maybe choosing activities that can work for both things so that you're not having to duplicate your planning, which probably you're already doing for most of your planning anyway right now. And then reframing thinking from like, it's just exercise, or exercise is not as important as all these other things. Like, if we didn't get to it, we didn't get to it. And really understanding that this physical activity is supporting social emotional health. And then advocating for safe outdoor time. So I want to ask you guys, we have a little bit of time here, just a couple minutes. Why would we want to be outside? What are the benefits of being out of that classroom? It's green, fresh air. Yeah. Yeah, it just feels good. And I didn't provide any research here today, but the fresh air, the change of scenery, the learning and engagement can increase. It's really good for your mental health. And I know that there are resources that will back that up. Besides anecdotally, it just feels good when you've been cooped up to get outside. And then for coronavirus, less risk of transmission of disease of the virus. So I really want to support you guys to advocate for safe outdoor time, because even a bit of sun and air can help a student re-regulate. So really thinking about what resources are available that we can use to get outside that are going to keep us safe. So probably a no is going to be the playground, right? Like, it's totally impractical to say between every 2 children, we're going to deeply sanitize the playground or something like that. But there are fields, there are sidewalks. We can use things like chalk to mark off areas, or put squares or circles or lines to think about what we're going to do. There's stickers that, in an ideal world, if everyone has great budgets, which I know is not realistic, but stickers that you can order and place in the hallways to get people moving in between, even outdoors stencils. Thinking about distance games. What can we do far apart that is like structured physical activity, maybe like the bear, salmon, mosquito thing apart, but outside. Hula hoops to mark spaces, music to get to play games, racing games, all those different kind of things we can think about. So again, we are here to help guide any of those conversations. And if anybody in our Cochise County schools would like support with organizing some of that, we are happy to do so. Please reach out. Okay, so we're kind of short on time, and I want to respect you guys' time. So we are going to end with one activity here, and this is called balloon breath. This is the brain energizer. And like we said before, brain energizers do not always have to be high energy, releasing energy. Sometimes they can be regulating and calm. And this is not only good for younger children, but it can work for all the ages. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to sit with good posture, back straight, feet on the ground. You can close or open your eyes, whatever you're comfortable with. We're going to put our hands on our stomach, and we are just going to pretend that there's a balloon in our mind. So when we breathe out or breathe in, we're filling up that balloon, and when we breathe out, it's going out. So we'll just do 5 breaths together. So I'm going to close my eyes, and I'm just going to picture these big balloons. So here we go. Okay, that's my 5 breaths. A really good variation of this activity is you can have your hands or your arms contract like a balloon, and you can do it as a visual to show kids, but you can also have them do it too to kind of add some extra body movement there. So thank you for doing a balloon breath. Final notes, just to follow up, I'm going to email links to resources along with your certificate. August 1st through 30th, our cooperative extension will be hosting live brain breaks via Zoom and on Facebook Live, and they'll be short 2 to 10 minute activities every school day in August that you can share, stream. We can send you the recording later, however we can get that to you. We're happy to do so. Get involved with your SHAC, it's your School Health Advisory Council, and work with them. Talk to us if you want more information about that, but working with them to have school-wide physical activity. We do have a Cochise County School Health newsletter, and every 2 weeks we send out a bunch of resources like this. And then finally, contact your school health team, which is us, or maybe if you know Sep Spritzma or Daniela Reed Miller, but you can always just send me an email at the end here and I will show you and I can get you in touch with the right person for more information or any more further technical assistance on any of these things. Okay, so I know we kind of pushed through time here. Here is my email. And again, I'll be sending you an email, so you'll have that. Typically, you would contact Andrea Bernal at Para127, but my email is there for the next couple of months while she's home with her little one. Do we have any questions that if anyone wants to stay to go over? Lots of thank yous. You guys are very welcome. Thank you for doing what you do and taking the time and supporting your students' social emotional health as well as their physical activity. And please, please, please feel free to reach out in any way possible. That is what we are here for, and we'll do our best to support you, supporting our kids. Stay safe, and thank you, everybody.